Today for our history podcast, we have a special guest via telephone. Sabrina, welcome.
Hi, your history geeks.
Today we're going to start our segment off by talking about the Cold War, the containment of communism, and the events leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis. For those of you who may not know, the Cold War was an intense rivalry between two superpowers, that being the United States and the Soviet Union. Their opposing ideals caused conflict because the United States wanted to spread capitalism and Russia communism. Ever since the development of atomic bombs, it made it easily accessible and cheap. It arose fear in people that the possibility of World War III would occur. Now, for our first question, we're going to be starting to talk about JFK. During the 60s, who was the president, Sabrina?
In the early 1960s, JFK was our 35th president. He was the youngest man to be elected, and sadly, he was the youngest man to be assassinated. The Cold War was still going on during his presidency, and of course, he was involved in it.
With that being said, what was the aftermath of the events of the Bay of Pigs?
The Bay of Pigs was one of the first attempts of invasion by the U.S. government to overthrow the government of Cuba following the Cuban Revolution of 1959. During the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro became leader, and he adopted Marxist-Leninist ideals, which were communist ideals. Of course, the United States did not like that communism was so close, so the pressure was put on the U.S. to make Cuba a more traditional government. So this operation was organized and funded by the CIA, and JFK authorized this mission. So on April 17, 1961, 1,500 soldiers landed on Cuba, and sadly they were defeated. The invasion was not successful because for fighters, they were easily defeated and imprisoned, and the U.S. underestimated the popularity of the revolution and the loyalty to Fidel. They were hoping that the invasion would ignite another rebellion that would bring down the government. This was not true. JFK also promised the soldiers that were imprisoned and captured that he was going to rescue them. This did not happen, so the ones who were captured were traded for food and medical supplies in December of 1962 in Cuba.
Well, thank you for that. And going on to the takeover of Cuba by Russia, do you believe that Russia helped Cuba in any way?
Yes, I do believe that, because since, of course, Cuba had communist ideals, and Russia did too, Russia felt that they needed to protect Cuba from another invasion. So the leader of Russia made an idea of placing intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Cuba to deploy strategic missiles. The Soviet Union worked quickly, and they secretly built the missile installations in Cuba. Later on, President Kennedy was shown footage of Soviet missile installations under construction in Cuba, and he was not happy.
After that result, what do you think America's reaction? How did you think they reacted?
America did not react well. President Kennedy, in a televised address on October 22, he announced the discovery of the installations of the missile crisis, and they proclaimed that any nuclear missile attack from Cuba would be regarded as an attack by the Soviet Union.
And with that, how did the Cuban Missile Crisis end? Was it positive, negative? How would you explain it?
Okay, so Of course, America tried to contain communism in Cuba, and in order to do that, they striked a deal. The U.S. striked a deal with the Soviet Union. Basically, President Kennedy made an agreement with the leader of Russia that if they dismantled their missiles from Cuba, the U.S. would take their missiles away from Turkey, but only with the private assurance, with the basis of a secret understanding, and that this agreement would not be open to the public.
And why was that so secret?
This was secretive because this could be considered blackmail to the NATO, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they are responsible for the mutual defense in response to an attack by any external party. And also, this will make the United States seem weak, not as like the major superpower as they were.
Is that why you may think the textbooks don't mention this deal?
I do think that because textbooks are always written by the winners. And then the winners, of course, they want to make themselves look good. So the United States has a history of them being winners. So, of course, they wouldn't want to, degrade themselves in that way.
And our final question, how did America's policy of containment differ from those of Cuba, Korea, and Berlin? How would you describe them?
Okay. So, in Cuba, they compromise. Both sides removed their nuclear weapons. In Korea, we had a more violent approach. We supplied troops to South Korea. We also supplied them with resources, and we basically helped them fight in a war. And of course, that war ended in a stalemate since we have North and South Korea. And in Berlin, it was a more peaceful approach because we delivered aid.
Right, that's where the Berlin airlift came through?
Yes.
All right, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And
thank you for having me.
Yep, join us next time when we talk about the 70s.